Good evening and welcome to tonight's show from DJNTV, Disc Jockey News TV. Tonight's show is brought to you by Electra Voice, DJ Event Planner, DJ Trivia, Odyssey Innovative Designs and Cases, NLFX Professional, Promo Only, and the DJNTV Insiders.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the DJ Spotlight here on Disc Jockey News TV. BadCat, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Yes, and I love the bright colors. It's usually me, and when it's somebody else too. So let's go back and kind of maybe talk about some key points in your career that brought you to where you are today. Can you share a bit about your story with us?
Sure. So I think my story is a little unusual compared to a lot of my peers here. I came to DJing really, really late in the game. And a lot of people don't know that. I've been a lifelong musician. So I started with, piano, clarinet, all the really kind of boring traditional stuff you do in school. And then at some point I realized that I was like super in love with jazz, right? I really liked the swing of it. So I wanted to be in the jazz band. So I switched over to saxophone so I could do that. So I played tenor and bari sax in high school. And just really, I love being a musician. Both of my parents are musicians. My mom's a drummer. My dad's a guitarist. My sister also played saxophone. So we were just like a whole little Partridge family. But I fell in love. I walked past a club in Pittsburgh sometime after college, right, in the 90s. And I just heard all this bass. And I was like, what is that? I have to go in there. And I went down the stairs. And it was called Pegasus in Pittsburgh, which if you know it, the show Queer as Folk was based on that club, actually, years later. But it was a gay club, and it was all house music, and I had literally never heard it before. And I fell in love that instant. And I was like, I ran to the DJ booth, which I had to find because back then it was hidden, right? And I was like, what is this magic coming out of these speakers? And he was like, it's house music, baby. And it gave me a CD, and I wore that thing out, and I was just like smitten. So this was in the early 90s. But back then, this is kind of pre-internet-ish, didn't really have like the sources to find the music. So I would go to record stores and constantly be trying to find that music that I heard, right? And could never find it. It just wasn't super available yet where I was at. And at Pittsburgh at the time, drum and bass was really prevalent. So every time I hear drum and bass or play drum and bass, I feel like I'm home again in Pittsburgh. But yeah, so that was in the 90s, and I didn't become a DJ at that point. I think in my mind, I was busy doing other things, traveling. I work in the software world, so I was kind of getting my geek on. And every time I kind of intersected with house music, I was like, God, I really, really love this stuff. And my friends were like, why aren't you a DJ? You should be a DJ. And I was like, oh, no, I have a job. And they laughed at me at one point, and they're like, silly girl, you don't do this for money. And I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, you can have a regular day job and be a DJ. And that honestly was like when my thinking shifted. I almost needed someone to give me permission to do it like as a part-time thing, which I don't know why I was so black and white about it in my head. Probably because I do everything 100%, right? I don't go a little bit into something. I jump full in. So I was actually 40 when I started DJing. It was only about 7 years ago. And I threw myself fully into it and spent hundreds of hours, trying to catch up kind of to where everybody else was. So it was a really late in the game kind of thing. But it was, again, all my friends saying, you're a really good selector. Every time I had a party, they loved my music. And they were like, you should be behind the decks. And finally, I was going through a divorce, and it was pretty terrible. And I needed something, right? I needed something to immerse myself in, some positivity. And I told my soon-to-be ex-husband, hey, I think I'm going to do this. And he mocked me. He was like, oh, nobody wants to see an old lady DJ like you. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm going to show you. So, so yeah, kind of a long circuitous route to get me behind the decks, but I've been a house music fanatic for 25 some years, but only a DJ for about 7.
I love that. I love how you took something and let it motivate you, let it drive you. It's relatable for, I think, a lot of women.
Right.
I know for me, hearing like, that's going to be too technical for you was like, oh, really?
Oh, okay.
It's so funny because I remember when I first started, I remember not being able to find the DJ as well because they were so hidden.
Right? You're like, where's the music coming from?
and now DJs are so amplified.
Right. Center stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in watching your progress, it's clear to me that you think deeply about both the music that you play and the words that you share with others. Mm-hmm. How closely related do you think social awareness and music making or DJing is connected, and why?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like, they're very closely related. I always, it's a great source of consternation when somebody in the music scene is not showing awareness, right, of our roots, of our history, and where our music comes from. It's really, it's important to me. I recognize fully that I am a straight, white, cis woman holding space in a culture that comes from queer Black roots, right? So I am always cognizant of this fact, and I'm honored to be part of that culture, and it's a rich culture. You really have to acknowledge it. So when I see people who are just, ignorant of it or kind of counter to it, I don't hesitate to kind of school them and just say, hey, let's show some respect here. Let's honor where we come from and never exclude those who were the creators of this culture.
I love that you bring that up because I actually remember sharing an article about this, and I had a lot of white, cisgendered male friends fight it.
Oh, yeah, they had feelings, right?
Yeah, I think you might have commented on it. And
probably.
my buddy Mark actually gave me a book, like Why DJ Saved My Life, that like thick book with all the history of all these different genres. And I opened up the book to that section, and it had everything in that article and then some. And I just thought, isn't that so interesting? Like, we have so many people in the industry that want to talk about, vinyl's the way to go and not producing with analog, you're just a
right.
And they don't even understand the history. And then when they hear that information, they get so angry about it. And I think curiosity is so powerful because we can learn so much. And when I was talking to DJ Ripley about it, she was talking about, diversity on lineups and how everybody brings their own flavor. So I so appreciate that you bring that up. And I encourage anybody that's listening right now to do your homework.
Yeah, right.
Before you start fighting something you don't know about.
Yeah, know your culture.
Yeah. I'd be really curious to hear some of the advice that you would give up-and-coming artists, maybe a few mistakes that you've made over the years that you would have rather learned through people that made those mistakes. Maybe you need to make them.
Yeah, I think getting as many mentors as you can is really vital. I was really, really fortunate. I had 2 key mentors. My first one was purely a house music DJ his whole life, right? And he gave me a great foundation and skill set, understanding the technology and everything. And my second mentor actually is a now house music producer and DJ who was formerly a hip hop music producer and DJ. So yeah, so I was really fortunate to get skill sets from both of those individuals, and they taught me different things, right? Even though they were friends, I thought, okay, is this just going to be more of the same? And it wasn't. It was like a whole different knowledge set from a whole different mentor. So I give lessons occasionally, actually frequently now. And when I do, I tell people, like, go find another mentor. Like, I'm not the end all and be all. I have a limited skill set, right? We all do. I have a limited perspective. So please do yourself the favor of getting another mentor, maybe somebody who plays a different genre of music, right? Get a trance mentor, because I'm not in that world, and they're going to teach you different stuff that I don't do. And ask all the questions. There's no question too stupid, right? Like, I'm somebody who, you get some anxiety sometimes, and you're already maybe a little defensive because you're like, okay, I'm already, a girl, so they're already going to think certain things about me. A lot of that's just in our heads, right? So, like, kind of get over that and ask all the questions. Like, even if it's like, how do you know what to plug in where? Because I remember the first time watching my mentor set up their equipment, and I was like, oh my God, this looks like so much. I don't understand a whole lot of this. But I come from a technology background, and I can wire up servers and computers. Why wouldn't I be able to do this? Signal flow is not that complex, right? It flows like water. So, watching and asking is really the key to learning. And don't be afraid to ask, because we all had to learn all of it at one point in time.
Isn't it funny how sometimes we are so scared to ask something that we'd rather spend like 3 months figuring out what you could figure out it's by asking.
Yes.
and I totally feel you, because, I've been in production groups where I ask questions and I get disrespected.
Yeah.
And I see the same questions asked by other men. Nobody cares. So
right. It's like, yeah, don't roll your eyes when I ask the question if you're going to ask something that is even more fundamental than what I just asked.
Yeah. But I love that you say, more than one mentor. And I love that you encourage it as a mentor, because it's so true. Like, I have gotten insight from people of different walks of life or different genres that have had so much impact. And depending on where people are in their life, right? Some people are a little jaded, so they might have some good advice, and other bits you're like, whoa.
Right. Yeah. We have a cool cafe in town that opened recently. Some friends of mine opened it. And it's, DJ focused and music focused, right? And I will likely be giving lessons there. And I was talking with one of the other instructors, and we learned that, he comes from a certain perspective, and he uses like mixed in key. I don't use mixed in key, right? So it's something, and the students were kind of looking at me like, I was like, it's not a big deal. Like, it's fine. Like, I can do it by ear, and that doesn't mean anything against someone who uses mixed in key, right? I know many very proficient musicians who choose to use that. I'm just not one of them, and I don't feel like I need it for the genres that I play. However, he was like primarily a trance DJ, right? In which it becomes very, very important, like your key changes. So, and it's okay. We're all different, and we all have different things to offer our students, right? Like, I will teach my students how to mix over a break once they're proficient, which is something that my second mentor taught me. My first mentor taught me to mix on intros and outros, right? But at some point, a hip hop DJ was like, you need to be more aggressive. If you put a track in that isn't working, you need to be able to get out of it in the middle of that song. So you need to know how to mix in and out on a break. You can't wait for the outro if it's going to be 6 minutes of boredom. That's going to kill your dance floor. So that was like a really vital skill for me to get. And I had been DJing probably a year, maybe not quite a year, before I got to that point. So yeah, you never know what another instructor is going to be able to gift you with. And I'm still learning, right? I hang out there because I learn from my peers, my friends. I'm still constantly learning.
Learning is sexy. I love it.
Right? I love learning new stuff. I'm always going back to school. Yeah. I took a production class last fall at our local community college, and you make a lot of great connections there too. And I tried to take a mixing and mastering class this past spring, but my work schedule kind of forced me to drop out, and I was so sad. I was like, I really, really want this skill set, but it's okay. When it's time, it'll happen.
Totally. Yeah, I've had that experience too. Or you're like,
It's so frustrating.
oh, my dog does not work with this VST, so I guess we're going back to the drawing board.
Right.
I actually, leading up to this, we were talking about some things that I haven't really talked about in this series before, so this is kind of the only reason I brought it up. I didn't even think to talk about it. So, let's talk about ageism. Being based on experience, what you've learned from others. What can we do to improve this stereotype?
Yeah, so my experience has been pretty interesting. I've honestly had more issues with sexism than racism, of course, not with racism, but with ageism for myself. Racism is definitely an issue still in this world as well. I have seen ageism kind of put more towards other folks. I don't know, maybe because the lights are low and people can't tell, but I have definitely shocked a bunch of people by telling them my actual age. I know most of the time going into a lot of gigs, I could probably be the mother of most of my peers who I'm DJing with. And that's okay. I joke about being the green room grandma sometimes. But honestly, usually people are like, wait, what? I thought you were in your 30s. And I'm like, yes, let's go with that. But actually, I own it. Like, I'm really happy. Like, yes, it's always a compliment and I appreciate it. But, I rocked my pretty natural gray hair for a couple years and didn't really make any secrets about it because I'm really proud of the fact that I started doing this at age 40 and now I'll be 48 in September. And so like, I'm edging really close to 50, but I'm still DJing in clubs and on the radio and getting flown places to do this. And I get included with a lot of really young, hip folks. So to me, I'm always flattered. So I don't feel like ageism has held me back per se. I feel like it does exist in the industry though, right? Because, a lot of the folks who really kind of were around for the origination of our genres are in their 50s now, right? So we see a lot of gray-haired headliners happening. And sometimes I think folks who are newer to the electronica realm are kind of like, oh, I don't want to see this old guy. No, go see the old guy. Go see the old guy because the old guy probably originated some of the tracks that you might be cutting and looping now. These are the people who really started the craft. So by all means, like, don't discriminate. And just like, I see young folks and definitely, I think we all kind of have certain natural reactions. You think you might want to discount somebody because they're young, right? You think, oh, they're not experienced yet. You don't know that. This could be a prodigy. This could be a person who's going to teach you something. So it goes both ways, right? I know in the technology industry, ageism worked against me when I was in my 20s because people thought I didn't know what I was doing. And I was managing the help desk of an international manufacturing corporation. And I did know what I was doing, but I couldn't get taken seriously because I was young. So yeah, that shoe goes on both feet.
I love that you mentioned that, both for the young people and the older people. And I am having a brain fart right now. I have worked with so many people that have been in the industry for so long that sometimes there is this entitlement of I should be booked because I've been here forever, or I don't take them seriously because they look like they're 15.
Right.
Like, I love your openness to grow, to teach, and I love that you are comfortable with yourself and your age and your capabilities in both your day job and in music, because I feel like, showcasing that confidence while still knowing like, hey, I don't know everything and I can learn more. Such a great example for everybody around you, no matter the age or skill set. So thank you for bringing this up. Thank you for talking about all that stuff because, oh my gosh, I
feel like sometimes
you started.
Yeah, sometimes my openness like works against me, right? I freak some people out. Like, I'm a little too honest, a little too present, a little too for some people, and that's okay. Like, maybe those aren't my people, and that's all right, because I honestly don't know any other way to be. I've learned that I don't like to stifle myself. I generally try to be appropriate, with my expression, and certainly diplomatic. I am a Libra, but in general, stifling myself and trying to be something I'm not, or hiding who I am and what I am, does not serve me well, right? As humans, I think that we manifest unhealthy things like dis-ease when we stifle. So I think it's really important to express, like, find the channels, find the people who are comfortable with you being who you are. That's your crew. Right? Those are your people who are like, oh yeah, that's just BadCat. That's what she's going to do. That's who she is. And, that's one of the beautiful things about getting older is you give a lot less fucks about what people think, Not that I don't care, but if I'm really having an issue about how somebody feels about me, I'll sit myself down and ask myself the question, are they paying your bills? No. So how important is their opinion at the end of the day? Not very. So that's something that you can always check yourself with. Like, why do I need to care that much? You might have a little moment where you're like, oh, I'm upset, but then, bring it back. Like, why does it matter?
Yes, get curious. I love that. When it comes to music making, learning, trying out different programming, or even just collaborating with other people, why do you think some might be a little bit more hesitant to jump into that realm or ask for help? And how do you feel that we can change that?
Yeah. So I definitely have my own struggle with this, right? So I've been DJing for 7-ish years now, and I want to get into production. And I've had lots of friends offer to collaborate with me, which is a great way to start anything, right? You need mentors. You need people who say, okay, yes, you do this, you don't do that. And I will say that, like, part of my hesitation is I've seen a lot of my other female friends cross that line from DJ into producer and put out some great music with a partner. And 99% of what I hear is like, oh yeah, he wrote the track and put her name on it. I hear this over and over again, or he ghost wrote it, or someone's ghostwriting for her. Anytime a woman puts something out, I hear this all the time. And I don't know that, and I don't believe that, right? Like, we are capable of writing music. I know this. I've written some stuff. So yeah, like, I have some consternation around starting to produce with a male partner. And I've had lots of great male friends who are totally supportive and who are not saying, hey, let me ghostwrite this track for you. They're like, let's sit down and collab for real. I want your creative input on this track. And I have that hesitation, because I'm like, I don't know that I want to come out with a male partner first, because I know what's going to be said. But then I have to check myself and be like, do we care what they're saying? So at the end of the day, I will probably end up, starting with a collab with somebody, just because, again, that's the best way to get your training wheels going. But yeah, it's a shame that that's kind of a knee-jerk reaction that a lot of people have to women producing, is that clearly it must have been ghostwritten by a dude,
Yeah, it is frustrating, hey? And then we see it even when she releases something on her own.
Right. Clearly, there's no way she could have written that by herself, right? Like, I had to write that. It's like, why? I mean, I definitely have gotten a lot of very pleased, surprise reactions after just playing sets, right? People are like shocked. They're like actually shook, that I played a set that rocked them. And I'm like, why is this revolutionary? Like, and the whole, what one of my mentors said, I don't ever want anyone to say you're good for a girl. He's like, I want you to be a legitimate threat on the turntables to everybody, which was great. Like, I love that was his objective, right? He's like, I'm going to make you dangerous. But yeah, like, I have definitely gotten and from other women, right, who mean well. They're like, you're my favorite female DJ. And I'm like, could I just be your favorite DJ? Could I? So yeah, like, that still exists. But I have to say, like, there's a tremendous amount of support coming from my male DJ friends, right? Like, it's not one of these like, oh, it's the men in the industry who are trash. Not at all. Not at all. You're going to have your individuals everywhere who are just unaware that some of the way they use the language divides us. And we're not necessarily looking for that division anymore. I just want to be lumped in as DJ.
Yeah. And I love that you say that. And I feel like that is a big part of the solution. Like, let's start acknowledging people for their talents, not their gender, not their sexual orientation, not their race. Like, let's amplify the people around us for their talents, their skill sets, and their drive and ambition and how they inspire you. Like, change the language. And I love that you have mentors that are men that are also advocates, clearly.
Yeah.
And so I feel like having these conversations is one way that we can change the discussion, because we get people aware about what that might look like.
Right.
Their meaning comments.
Yes. And it's important to know that, feminism isn't misandry, right? It's not hating on men. Like, we love men are great, we love you and appreciate you. And I wouldn't be where I'm at right now if it weren't for the men in the industry who advocate for me and who say, I'm putting this person on the lineup because she's a dope DJ, right? And it doesn't mean that, it's a really fine line when you deal with like the all-female lineup thing, right? Like, as long as it's done in a non-exploitative way, I don't mind it. And I absolutely believe in advocating and holding space for those who do not get the limelight. I had a monthly night at a local club that is sadly no longer here, but my night was called Purr, and I focused on minority DJs. And it was not pity bookings. Every DJ that I booked was a better DJ than I. I learned something from every single person I booked, but I tried to book about 90% minority DJs, just because I recognize these are the folks who don't get the limelight, they don't get the headline slot, they don't get paid fairly. And I wanted to use my privilege to hold that space for those folks, right? And I like to see that happening in the industry, but you do always have people who get feelings about it and say, oh, so you're not gonna book a straight white male? And I'm like, no, I'll book you too. Like, that's fine. This isn't me against you. Like, we need you all to hold that space for us, because I wouldn't be here without those men who said, let's give her a chance.
Exactly. And I was talking to my friend about this the other day, about how frustrating it is to like only be booked for queer lineups.
Yeah.
He wants to be booked for like a nice range of events, and like how many events can I
right.
for a couple months, and then it's like, what about the rest of the year? So
yeah, I try to be careful about, when someone hits me up for, oh, we're doing an all-female lineup. Okay, that's great. I'm glad you're holding space. But then they're like, can you send us a headshot? And I'm like, no, I'll send you my logo. Like, I really don't want people coming to an event because of a picture, right? Like, I feel very awkward about that. I would this is why I have a professional logo. Like, if you don't come to hear my music and my vibe, I don't want you there, like, because of whatever you might think I look like DJing. So it's kind of a weird fine line that I draw. And there's always exceptions, but I try to be really careful about that, as a woman. Like, I think a lot of us are always cognizant of like being accused of relying on our looks for bookings. And that's something that I'm very sensitive to, so if I don't know somebody and they approach me for a booking, I will probably kind of interview them a little bit and find out, like, what's your motive? Let me look at some of your past events. Let me make sure that this is not exploitative to women. And it sucks that I kind of feel like I have to do that a little bit, but in general, I've had way more good experiences than bad, right? It's much more cool people just trying to get new faces and new sounds out there. So overall, it's not like there's just a ton of terrible people doing terrible things around here, but every once in a while someone slips in and they're a little shady, and you kind of have to be careful about it.
Well, I love the idea of interviewing people too. I mean, that's just smart business. If someone, I want to book you to DJ, you want to know about their event because maybe they think you play music that you don't.
Yeah, I had something like that recently. Somebody hit me up and they're like, "Oh, I think you're fabulous. You're great. I really want to book you." And I'm like, "Oh, excellent. I'm so pleased. Thank you." And we start talking, and I was very, very explicit up front. I said, "You do understand I am only an underground house music DJ. I'm not open format. I don't play top 40. I don't play pop. I just want to be very, very clear. I don't take requests, no hip hop. Like, I'm house, juke, drum and bass, like pretty eclectic for the mainstream people." And they were like, "No, this is great." And so we literally scheduled a meeting, and then they come back and we're like, "Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe if you do like kind of hits from the 80s. And I was like, "Did you not hear what I said?" So I was disappointed. I was like, "You know what? I'm really glad you mentioned that. I think I'm not the DJ for you. I can connect you with someone who can do that work." But they're like, "Oh, I really want to do. You're great." And I'm like, "I appreciate that, but my greatness comes from my selection, and my selection is all underground. So you're not going to think I'm so great when I'm saying no requests and playing stuff that you can't sing to." So
Oh my God. You have a way with words. You're so professional. I love it. But like, still, you can at least laugh about it.
yeah, you have to, right? Like, life's too short to go around being miserable, even when things are weird. So.
Totally. So on the note of events, and to end off this amazing interview, I would love to hear about any exciting projects you've got coming up, mixes coming out. So let us know. And of course, we will link everything below for people to check out.
Yeah, so it's funny, in the desert, everything's always feast or famine, right? It's always either monsoon season or it's desert. So my bookings and gigs just they seem to come up like all at once, and then they go away all at once. Right now, we're at the end of summer. So this weekend, I'm actually playing, it's the one time a year you'll hear me play something that isn't house music in public, and it's charity work. We have something in Santa Fe called Zozobra. And it's pretty crazy. If you haven't heard about it, you should look it up. It's pretty wild. It's we actually burn an effigy, and it's like you're burning all of the bad stuff that happened in the year. And I will be DJing at Zozo Fest on Saturday, but I'm playing disco because this year's theme is the 70s. And since disco is house music's pappy, I don't feel too bad about going outside of my genre. So pretty excited about that. Sunday is going to be my event that we run monthly at Cafe Mimosa, and it's called Pan, and it's an LGBT party. And it's the last Sunday of every month from 6 till 11 p.m. And it's just a very like deep, sexy, loungy vibe. I mean, I have like a 5-hour runway, right, to explore this set. And it's pretty exciting, and we get pretty deep, and we get pretty weird with it. It's been a good time so far. So that's kind of my running event. My radio show is every Saturday, midnight. It's called The Legion of Boom, and it's on KSFR.org, which is 101.1 FM in Santa Fe. And that's 2 hours of underground music. I frequently have guests. Sometimes we'll be playing breaks, drum and bass, juke, global bass. You never know. It's all electronica. So that's every Saturday from midnight Mountain till 2 a.m. Right now I'm working on some bookings in Mexico. Those have not been finalized, so that's kind of coming up. And I've also talked to a couple restaurant owners, one locally and then one in Seattle, about creating, like crafting an atmospheric mix for their environment in the restaurants. You know, they're restaurants that I like and I go to, and I was like, God, everything is really on point except music. Right? They don't have the music dialed in. And I'm like, this would be an even better experience with the right soundtrack. And they're like, okay, bring it. So I actually have 2 restaurants right now that I'm talking to about doing a branded mix for them that they can use in their space, and that I can also put out so people can kind of get a feel for, you know, what that experience might be like in the restaurant. So that's kind of fun.
That is so smart. Oh my gosh. I have questions for you at the end.
It just happened organically too. It wasn't something I was like trying to add to my list of things to do. I was literally just talking to the owners, and they were like, hey, you're a DJ. Can't you do that? And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess I can. So I need to get on it.
Yeah, well, that's so smart. One of the companies I work for, they literally, like, they will sell mixes to business owners because, I mean, you can't afford a DJ, or you don't have the space for one, or you just want to see what it might look like to try something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so wonderful.
Yeah, I'm excited to do those.
BadCat, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us today. It was so wonderful.
Yeah.
I've been following you for a few years, and you are just such a delight. It, like, on the online world, so like the face-to-face is.
I know. Social media does have its benefits sometimes. You get to make really good friends that you otherwise might not.
For the rest of y'all that have tuned into this episode, let us know in the comments below something that she said that really had impact for you. Maybe she talked about something that you want to start doing, like becoming a mentor or joining a webinar or workshop and learning more. Let us know in the comments below what that thing was and how you're going to apply it to your life today. And as always, make sure you don't let no one kill your vibes.